ప్రేమ స్వరూపులారా,
embodiments of love.
మీరు అన్ని పలుకులు నిజమైనటువంటివి.
What all you said is quite
కానీ
true.
పలుకులకు సంతోషించడు భగవంతుడు.
God will not be happy
ఆ
by your
పలుకులను
words.
ప్రాక్టికల్ లో పెట్టండి.
All our words must be translated into
న్యూ
action.
ప్లాట్ఫామ్ స్పీచెస్ లో గొప్ప హీరోగా ఉండవచ్చును,
You may be a hero on a platform.
కానీ ప్రాక్టికల్ సైన్స్ లో జీరోగా ఉండవచ్చు.
In practical life, you may be a zero.
ప్రాక్టికల్ సైన్స్ లో హీరో కావాలి.
You should be a hero in practical life.
అది నాకు చాలా ఇష్టము.
That what Bhagavan
ఎన్ని
expects and
బాధలైనా
wants.
రాని
Let him any
ప్రాక్టికల్ లోపల నిత్య జీవితం లోపల నీవు హీరోగా.
Any difficulty you may have in practical life, be a hero.
కనుకని దైవత్వం అనేటువంటిది పెద్దలంతా ఎన్నో అనుభవించినారు.
Divinity is experienced by elders.
మహమ్మద్ కానీ,
Prophet Muhammad,
కానీ జిద్దున కానీ,
Jesus,
ఈ వీరందరూ కూడా ఎంతనో గొప్పవారంతా.
all are very great people.
వారు ఎంత గ్రేట్నెస్ ఎట్లా వచ్చింది?
Where does the secret of
వారు
greatness
మంచి
lie?
పనులు చేయటం చేతనే గ్రేట్నెస్ వచ్చింది.
Their goodness brought them the greatness.
ఈ గ్రేట్నెస్ లో దాంట్లో గుడ్నెస్ కూడా చేర్చాలి.
The greatness should have in combination the goodness too.
కనుక గ్రేట్నెస్ కంటే గుడ్నెస్ చాలా మంచిది.
Goodness is greater than greatness.
ఎంతమందో భారతదేశం నందు మహనీయులంతా ఉన్నారు.
In Bharat there are many noble souls.
ఎంతో ప్రేమతో పవిత్రమైనటువంటి భావంతో మీరు సత్యసాయి పేరు పెట్టుకొని ఎంతో పవిత్రమైన కార్యములు చేస్తున్నారు. కార్యములు చేస్తున్నారే కానీ క్రమక్రమేణా బుద్ధులు మాత్రం దుర్బుద్ధులుగా మారిపోతున్నాయి.
In the name of Satya Sai, with all the love and sanctity behind, you do lots of work, but yet the thought and the deeds
ప్రధానం
are
కాదు, గుణములు చాలా ప్రధానం.
Bhagavan does not consider the work valid.
ఎక్కడైనా
The quality is important.
అడవుల యందున్నా, ఆకాశమునున్నా, పల్లెమునున్నా, పట్టణమునున్నా, ఎక్కడ ఉన్నప్పటికీ గుణములు చాలా అవసరం కావాలి.
You may be on earth or in the sky, in the space, up the mountain, down deep in the valley or in the deep sea. You should have values.
అసూయ భావము చాలా చెడ్డది.
Jealousy is very bad.
ఆ అసూయ ఉన్నటువంటి వారికి ఏనాటికి నీ జీవితంగా జరగదు.
A jealous person would never be
అది
successful.
లివింగ్ డెత్ అని చెప్పవచ్చు.
Jealousy leads to living death.
దానికి తగినట్టుగా ఇక్కడ మాటలు అక్కడ మాటలు ఈ తంటాలు చెప్పుకోవటం.
Further adding to this, we find carrying
ఇతరులపై
tales.
నీకు ఎందుకు ఈ మాటలు?
Why do you carry
ఇతరుల
tales?
గురించి నీవు ఎందుకు దూషించటము?
Why do you criticize others?
నీలో ఉన్నటువంటి దుర్గుణాన్ని నీవు దూషించుకో.
Just accuse all the bad
నీలో
qualities
ఉన్నటువంటి
within you.
దుర్భావములను నీవు దూసి పారవేయి.
Brush aside all the bad feelings in you.
కానీ పరుల యందు లేనటువంటి దుర్గుణాన్ని నీవు పుట్టించి ఎందుకు నీవు ప్రచారం చేస్తావు?
But you attribute bad qualities to others and publish.
కొంతమంది ఎన్ని విధములుగా చెప్పినప్పటికీ వారిలో మార్పు చెందటం లేదు.
In spite of repeated caution, there is no change in many.
ఇప్పుడు 5-6 సంవత్సరం నుంచి కూడాను నాకు చాలా బేజారుగా ఉంటుంటది.
Bhagavan is very much vexed for
ఇలాంటి
last 5-6
సంస్థలు
years.
ప్రయత్నించి ప్రారంభించి ప్రయోజనం ఏమిటి?
What is the use of these institutions and organizations?
సమితిలంతా పెట్టుకుంటున్నారు,
We have samitis,
భజన మండలిలు పెట్టుకుంటున్నారు,
bhajana mandalis.
సోషల్ వర్క్ అంతా చేస్తున్నారు,
We do social work
స్టడీ వర్క్ జరుపుతున్నారు,
and we find
పనులు. ఏం ప్రయోజనము?
so much work is going on. Why?
హృదయంలో ప్రేమతత్వమే లేకపోతే ఎన్ని జరిపి కూడా ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
Without love in our heart, transformation,
లవ్
all
ఈజ్
the work
గాడ్,
is useless.
లివ్ ఇన్ లవ్.
Love is God, live in love.
ఆ ప్రేమతత్వాన్ని మీరు పెంచుకోవాలి.
Develop the spirit of love.
కనుకనే ఊరికి వారిపైన వీరిపైన ద్వేషాలు పెట్టుకోవటము,
And hatred against each
ఈ
other.
టీచర్స్ లోపల కూడాను ద్వేషాలు,
And there's hatred among teachers.
ఈ టీచర్స్ లో కూడాను పార్టీలు,
There's infighting, groupism among
ఇలాంటి
teachers.
దుర్బుద్ధులు ఉన్నటువంటి వారిని కాల్చివేసినా కానీ తప్పులేదు.
Such bad people with the kind of contradiction
వారి
among
నుంచి ఇతరులు
themselves
దుర్గుణములు
are not worth the salt.
ఇలాంటి దుర్గుణములు ఉండేటువంటి వారి నేను ఏమాత్రమో చూడను.
Bhagavan will never consider those people with these bad
నేను
qualities.
ఏమి కావాల్సినా నేను ఇస్తాను,
Bhagavan is ready to
నా
give.
ప్రాణం కావాల్సింటే ఇస్తాను, కానీ దుర్గుణాన్ని దూరం చేసుకోండి.
Bhagavan is ready to give his life for you, but give up the bad qualities.
కనుకనే సత్యసాయి అనేటువంటి పేరుకు తగినటువంటి గౌరవాన్ని ఇవ్వాలి.
We should respect the organization
ఎన్నో
befitting
సంస్థలు
the
ఈ
holy
రకంగా
matchless
జరుగుతున్నాయి.
name.
ఎన్నో సంస్థలు ఈ రకంగా జరుగుతున్నాయి.
There are many organizations in the world.
ఏ సంస్థలు అయినా కానీ స్వామి పేరు పెట్టుకున్నప్పుడు సత్య అన్న సత్య మార్గంలో పోవాలి.
The organization bearing the matchless holy name of Satya should follow the path of truth.
ఈ సత్యన సాయి అని పేరు పెట్టుకొని సత్యాన్ని పలకపోతే ప్రయోజనం ఏంటి?
With the name of Satya Sai, if we don't speak truth, what for is the name?
నోరెత్తితే అబద్ధము,
By the time we speak
కాలు
full of
పెడితే
lies,
అధర్మము,
and all our actions are unrighteous,
ముఖం తిప్పితే ప్రేమనే ఉండదు.
and our face does not show any love.
కనుకనే మనము ఆ సత్య ధర్మాన్ని ప్రేమతో మనం పెంచుకున్నప్పుడే ఆ సంస్థలు కూడాను బాగా పెరుగుతాయి.
Therefore, when we develop truth and righteousness on the foundation of
మొట్టమొదటి
love,
మీరు
the organization
ఈనాటి
will
నుండి
grow.
కూడాను ప్రేమతత్వాన్ని,
Today, this principle of love
సత్య మార్గాన్ని,
and the path of truth
ధర్మతత్వాన్ని
and also righteousness,
అభివృద్ధి పరచుకోవాలి.
we have got to develop them.
అదే మీరు చేయవలసినటువంటి పని.
That's what we are supposed to do.
దైవ సంస్థలను పెట్టుకోవటమును, దానవ కర్మలు ఆచరించటము ఇది మంచిది కాదు.
Being the organization of the divine, our deeds cannot be demonic.
కనుక సత్యమైనటువంటి మార్గంలో సత్య మార్గమును ప్రవేశపెట్టాలి.
So we should follow the path of truth in a righteous way.
కనుకనే భగవంతునకు అన్ని రకములైనటువంటి పేర్లంతా కూడా నియమిస్తుంటూ వచ్చారు.
God has so many names and
సత్య
attributes,
ధర్మపరాయణాయ నమః,
and He really
సత్య
maintains
స్వరూపాయ నమః.
is the personification of truth.
ఈ విధంగా పెట్టుకోవటంలో ఎంత అర్థం ఉంటుండాయి.
What an amount of meaning it conveys.
ప్రేమ స్వరూపాయ నమః.
His embodiment of love,
ప్రేమనే మానవుని యొక్క ప్రధానమైన పత్రం.
and love is the main principle of human life.
అలాంటి ప్రేమ లేనటువంటి యొక్క దీని ప్రయోజనం ఏమిటి?
Without life, what for? Without love, what for? is
వీరు
the life?
లేనప్పుడు వారిపైన, వారు లేనప్పుడు వీరిపైన తంటాలు చెప్పుకుంటూ కూర్చోవటం,
People go on carrying the tales
ఇలాంటి
against each
దుర్బుద్ధులు
other.
రావటము ఆడవారికి చాలా అవమానకరమే.
It is a matter of shame among women to have such qualities.
మొదల నుంచి కూడాను ఈ దుర్గుణములు స్త్రీల్లో లేకుండా ఉండేటువంటిది.
Right from the beginning, there were no trace of such.
నా యొక్క ఉద్దేశము చదువులు పెరుగుతూ రావటం వల్ల దుర్గుణాలు కూడా పెరుగుతూ వచ్చాయి.
Bhagavan feels that there's more and more of education today.
చదువులన్నీ
There's more
చదివి
and more of bad
చాలా
qualities.
వివేకి అయి మగిడి తన్నెరు కూడా మందమతుడు.
With all the education and specialization, man does not know his true
ఎంత
identity.
చదువు చదివి ఏ నీతి ఉన్నను హీనుని కూడా మానలేడు.
With all the high education, a mean man would never give up his mean mind.
తరచి చదువ తర్కవాదమే కాని పూర్ణ జ్ఞానం ఎప్పుడు పొందలేడు.
The education, after all, helps you to argue with each other, but not earn
ఇలాంటి చదువు
total knowledge.
చదివి చావంగనేటికి
After all, acquiring this knowledge, why should we die?
చావు లేని చదువు
We should study to be immortal.
కనుకనే ఈ దుర్గుణములతో కూడినటువంటి చదువు ఉండి ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
This education with bad qualities is useless.
కనుక మనం చదువులు కాదు ముఖ్యము, గుణములు చాలా అవసరము.
It's not the education that matters, it's only the quality.
ఈ దుర్గుణములతో కూడినటువంటి వాడిని స్నేహం చేయటం వల్ల వీరు కూడా దుర్గుణులు అవుతారు.
Joining the bad company, you also become bad.
జయ దుర్జన సంసర్గం,
Run away from the bad company.
భజ సాధు సమాగమం,
Join the good company.
కురు పుణ్య మహోరాత్రం.
Do good deeds day and
ఇది
night.
ముఖ్యమైనటువంటి మానవునికి.
These are the important qualities for mankind.
చెడ్డవారితో మనం స్నేహం చేయటం చేత మనం కూడా చెడ్డవారైపోతాం.
If you join the bad company, you turn bad.
మహాభారతం లోపల గొప్పవాడు కర్ణుడు.
In Mahabharata, Karna is a mighty man.
కర్ణుడు సర్వ విద్యలు సంపూర్ణంగా నేర్చుకున్నటువంటి
He is
వాడు.
an expert in archery.
అతను మహాగురువు యొక్క చేయబట్టినటువంటి వాడు.
And in fact, he is not an ordinary one.
అర్జునుడి కంటే గొప్ప విద్య కలిగినటువంటి
He
వాడు.
is greater, more knowledgeable than
కానీ
Arjuna.
ఇంత గొప్ప విద్యావంతుడైనప్పటికీ
Being an intellectual,
కర్ణుని యొక్క పేరు ఎందుకు చెడిపోయింది?
why did he get a bad name? Karna.
దుర్యోధన దుశ్శాసనాదుల యొక్క సంపర్కం చేత తన పేరు పాడైపోయింది.
Because Karna joined the bad company of Duryodhana and Dusyasana.
కనుకనే అంత గొప్పవాడే ప్రయోజనం ఏమిటి?
So though he is so great,
కర్ణుడు అంతటి వాడు కడపటికి ఏమయ్యే?
what happened to Karna, such a great man, at the end?
కనుకనే మనము ఎన్ని విధములు చదివినప్పటికీ బుద్ధి సరిలేకపోతే అన్ని వ్యర్థమైపోతుంది.
When our mind is not proper, everything would be in
దుస్సంగం
vain.
దూరంగా మనం పోవాలి.
We should run away from the bad company.
అప్పుడే నిజమైనటువంటి యొక్క తత్వము.
Then you'll have your true nature.
కనుక విద్యార్థులారా,
Students,
విద్యార్థినీయులారా,
boys and girls,
అందరూ కూడాను గుణములు మొట్టమొదటి పెంచుకోండి.
all of you develop human qualities.
ధనమును సంపాదించే ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
After all, earning money is not
ధనమెచ్చిన
that important.
మదమెచ్చును, మదమెచ్చిన దుర్గుణంబు మానక హెచ్చును.
When once there's more of money, there'll be more of ego and avarice.
మదముడిన ధనముడుగును, ధనముడిగిన మదముడుగును.
When once money is gone, you cannot be egoistic.
మదమిడిగిన దుర్గుణంబు మానునివేమా.
Thereafter, with the loss of money, you will not have any bad quality.
కనుకనే మనకు ధన సంపాదన గొప్పది కాదు.
Amassing wealth is not
గుణ
that important.
సంపాదన చాలా అవసరమైనటువంటిది.
In fact, the qualities, values are important.
మితంగా మాట్లాడండి.
Talk in
అమితంగా
limited way.
మాట్లాడటం చేతనే ఈ విధమైనటువంటివన్నీ వస్తుంటాయి.
Too much talk leads to all these bad qualities.
ఎన్ని సంస్థల్లో నువ్వు చేరినప్పటికీ నీ లోపల ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క భావమే మార్చుకొనుకుంటున్నా నీ ఉండి ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
You may be in any organization. If there's no cognizable transformation within you, it's all
మాటలు
useless.
తీయని మాటలు,
We talk too much.
కానీ హృదయం చేదు మనసు,
But though we talk sweetly, the heart is bitter.
పాయిజన్.
It's poison, poison.
కనుకనే మొట్టమొదట మనం మనసు లోపల తీయదనాన్ని పెంచుకోవాలి.
So we should see that there will be nectar within.
అది ఏ నిజమైనటువంటి హృదయము.
That is true heart.
హృత్ ప్లస్ దయా హృదయము.
Hrit plus daya.
దయా హృదయులు కావాలి.
One should be compassionate.
ప్రేమ హృదయులు కావాలి.
One should be full of love.
అప్పుడే నిజమైనటువంటి మానవుడు.
Then you are a true human.
ఈ విధంగా జీసస్ ప్రేమ హృదయుడైపోయి అనేక మందిని బీదలను సాధలను సాకుతూ సంరక్షిస్తూ వారికి తగినటువంటి తోడు నీటిగా ఉండటం చేత అనేక మంది విరోధులు బయలుదేరారు.
As Jesus being the embodiment of love, he started helping the poor, needy and the forlorn. Therefore that led to many of the foes.
ఎవరైనా సరే మంచి వారికి సహాయం చేయండి.
Let him be anyone. Help
మనకి ఎన్ని
everybody.
కష్టములు వచ్చినా కూడా పర్వాలేదు.
Doesn't matter even if you
ఎన్ని
have problems.
బాధలు సంభవించినా పర్వాలేదు.
You may have difficulties on the way.
పరులను మాత్రం దూషించకూడదు.
But never criticize anybody.
అందరి యందు ఉండేటువంటిది ఒకే ఆత్మనే.
The same Atma dwells in all.
నీ ఆత్మనే నీవు దూషించేటువంటి వారి యందు కూడాను అదే ఆత్మనే ఉంటుండాలి.
The Atma present in you is present in the other man whom you hate.
ఇతన్ని దూషిస్తున్నావని నీవు భావిస్తావు కానీ కాదు కాదు నిన్ను నీవే దూషించుకున్నట్టు.
You think you are criticizing someone else? No. You are criticizing
నీకు
yourself.
ఇష్టం లేకపోతే ఊరుకుండు, అంతేకాని పరులను దూషించకూడదు.
If you don't like, remain silent. Don't accuse.
కనుక ఇలాంటి మంచి గుణములు పెంచుకుంటూ రండి.
So we should do good deeds and develop good qualities.
చెడ్డ గుణములు పెంచుకుంటూ మంచి పనులు ఎన్ని చేసినప్పటికీ ప్రయోజనం ఉండదు.
With the bad qualities, no amount of good work will come to your help.
మంచి మాటలైనా పలకండి.
At least speak good
You
words.
cannot always oblige, but you can speak always obligingly.
You cannot always oblige, but you can speak obligingly.
కనుక నీవు మంచి మాటలు మాట్లాడు.
Speak softly and sweetly.
అంతేకాని ఇతరులపైన దోషములు లేనిపోని కల్పించి మాట్లాడుకోవటం ఇది రాక్షస కృత్యము.
Don't find fault with others and spread this, share this with everybody.
ఎవరికైనా బాధలు జరిగితే నీవు బాధపడలేవు.
If there is any suffering that come to your
అయ్యో
notice,
పాపం ఈనాడు వారికి జరిగింది,
Feel bad.
రేపు మాకు జరుగుతుందేమో.
today they are suffering, tomorrow I may suffer.
కనుక ఎవరికైనా బాధలు తప్పదు.
One is bound to suffer someday or other.
కనుక అందరి క్షేమాన్ని మనం కోరండి.
We should pray for the welfare of everybody.
లోక సమస్త సుఖినో భవంతు.
That's the reason why we pray, let the whole world be happy and peaceful.
కనుక మనం అందరి యొక్క క్షేమాన్ని మనం గుర్తించాలి.
We have to work for the prosperity of everybody.
అందరి యొక్క క్షేమాన్ని మనం గుర్తించాలి.
We should also know the welfare of
మన
everybody.
హృదయం హిరణ్య గర్భంగా మారాలి.
Our heart should be golden, hiranyagarbha.
అప్పుడే మంచి భావము మంచి జీవితము కలుగుతుంది.
With the golden heart there will be golden ideas and a successful life.
కనుకనే మంచివాడు అనడానికి కారణం ఇదియే.
Should be the trend of a good
నీవు
man.
గొప్పవాడు కానక్కర్లేదు, మంచివాడు కా.
You don't need to be a great man, be a good man at least.
అందరూ నిన్ను ప్రేమించేటట్టుగా నువ్వు ప్రయత్నించాలి.
Behave yourself as to be loved by everybody.
కనుకనే భగవంతుని అంతా కూడాను హిరణ్య గర్భాయ నమః అన్నారు. అందరూ భగవంతుని ప్రేమిస్తారు.
God has got this hiranyagarbha because all love him.
ఎప్పుడు కూడా ఆనందంగా ఉంటాడు.
God is always blissful.
ఎవరిని ద్వేషించడు.
He never hates anybody.
ఎవరిని పరిహసించడు.
He never makes fun of anybody.
ఏది చేసినా వారి మంచి కోసమే చేస్తుంటాడు.
Whatever God does, it is for your good.
కనుకని ఏది చేసినప్పటికీ ఇది నా మంచికి అని
All actions of God are for your own good.
కనుక ప్రతి మానవుడు కూడాను ఆ ప్రేమతత్వాన్ని పెంచుకోండి.
So every man should develop the spirit of love.
సత్య మార్గాన్ని పెంచుకోండి.
And should follow the path of truth.
నీతిని నిలుపుకోండి.
And we have to uphold
నీతి
morality.
లేని జాతి నిర్భయంబు.
And without morality, the nationality is useless.
కాబట్టి నేషనాలిటీ ఉండినంత మాత్రమే కాదు, మొరాలిటీ కూడా ఉండాలా.
It's not enough if you have nationality.
చాలా మంది
Morality is
నేషనాలిటీ దేశభక్తి కావాలని కోరుతుంటారు.
people stress on nationality and patriotism.
నేషనాలిటీ ఉండి ప్రయోజనం ఏంటి?
What for is that nationality?
నిజమైనటువంటి ఒక ప్రేమతత్వం ఉండాలి.
So love and morality are more important.
మొరాలిటీ లేకపోతే నేషనాలిటీ ఉండి ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
Without morality, mere nationality is
కాబట్టి
useless.
అన్నిటికూను మొరాలిటీ చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్.
So for all, morality is very important.
కనుక మనం మొరాలిటీని పెంచుకోవాలి.
So we have to develop the moral conduct.
మోరల్ కాండక్ట్ పెట్టుకునేటప్పుడే మనిషిగా మారుతాడు.
Then once there is moral conduct, we will be a true human.
కనుకనే ఆ ప్రేమ చేత మీ హృదయాన్ని పవిత్రం చేసుకోండి.
Make your heart sacred with love.
Salam, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. We are so very happy to see your faces and the chance for us to be together as the crazy times continue, but we also know that there's some hope that maybe there'll be an end this year. We're hoping that, Lord, if not an end, at least something that allows us to come together more often. Of course, being Valentine's Day, we have themed this around the heart, because what's more about Valentine's than the heart? Our speaker today is a cardiothoracic surgeon, and he has a great love for Swami as well. So that's the heart and the heart. And we are looking forward to what he has to say and what he's going to share with us. I happen to know that Sagar Damli, who will be our speaker today, Dr. Sagar Damli, I should say, anytime, and lately it's been happening a lot, he may get a call like that, and he has to go and do a heart transplant in just split seconds. Could be any time, day or night, and this has been going on a lot lately. So he's saving lives daily, this fellow. You never know. He may have saved someone's life yesterday. We don't know. So definitely he's someone that we can all learn from to get to the position he's in life. Of course, he had to go through a lot of things, and yet he has a great humility about him. I have worked with him on several different occasions, particularly at the Atlanta Mission, homeless shelter downtown Atlanta, where he has served and used his medical capacities as part of the Psy Clinic of Atlanta that we started there a couple years back. And he is always sharp and attentive and trying to do everything he can for the patients, looking for ways to improve the clinic, and so humble. Always he comes, what can I do to serve? He has the attitude of being of service, and he also participates in Meals on Wheels and the study circle of our center, and he's jumped in along with his wife, Shanti, who has now become our SSE coordinator. And they've only been in Atlanta a short while, but already we're feeling their love, their presence, their contributions to everything we do for the Sai Fold, for Swami, and for those that we serve. So one other thing I'd like to mention before we bring Sagar up is I'd like for everyone to bang their hands together for the altar team, as you see the absolute most beautiful altar, as always, for Valentine's Day. And I would like to offer my pranams at the Divine Lotus Feet of Sai. As we kick off this program, Swami, please be with us all. Continue to guide us through the world that we live in, and continue to bless us all as we try to serve and love as best we can going forward. And with that, let's welcome Sagar Damli, Dr. Sagar Damli. Sai.
Saddam, can you hear me? Saddam, Saddam. Saddam. Okay. Saddam, my humblest pranams to the real healer, the penultimate healer of healers, and the doctor of doctors, Swami. I'd like to first give thanks to my Lord, who is ever guiding me and challenging me for this opportunity to perform some self-reflection and put to paper or PowerPoint, as it might be, some of the thoughts and transformations that I have personally experienced with his grace. I'd also like to thank Brother Ravi and everyone here for giving me some time to express my thoughts and some of my experiences with you, And finally, I'd like to thank my wife, Shanti, for volunteering me for this wonderful opportunity. She's, of course, in Colorado serving her mom who had a minor surgery, but I know they're listening in today. But before I get started, I'd like to, something that came to mind as I was watching that Swami video. You know, a lot of times when we go out to dinner or we do something, you know, the appetizer comes first and then it's the main course. But I really feel like this was kind of in reverse. I mean, it's kind of hard to follow a Swami, you know, talk with your own experience, but I'm going to do my best. I want to click to the next slide. Waiting. Well, as we get the slides going. So when Brother Ravi asked me to speak, the first thought I had was kind of, why me? Go ahead and click it again. Well, so, you know, most of the time when we have speakers who come and talk at our center or other centers, you know, a lot of them tend to be people who have had some sort of Sai exposure, like from birth. They were born into a family that was Sai followers or Sai students, you know, or something along those lines. Or people who've had really deep or repeated interactions with Swami in the physical form and can regale us with wonderful stories of, you know, how Swami was as a kid or some personal interaction they had with Swami. Or you may find that it's some accomplished singer or musician who's been really blessed with the ability to just, you know, move our hearts with their song. Well, as much as I love singing bhajans, I'm clearly not, you know, that's not my calling. So I had to ask myself, you know, why me? Well, we'll move to the slides when they get there. But then I got to thinking and reflecting, and ultimately I surmised, why not? You know, as a doctor, I have the ultimate privilege and responsibility, as I see it, to do God's work. I'm really blessed every day to be able to serve others. And as you will hopefully hear a little bit later in the talk, I feel like I've had the opportunity to mature through my career and see Swami's presence all around me more and more. And as I have kind of transitioned from being a trainee into an early career, now as I get into kind of the middle of my career, I'm really starting to understand and feel this idea that everything I do is not my doing, but Swami working through me. In addition, I hope that this talk will be a little bit of an opportunity for others to see that you don't need to have a close physical proximity to Swami to see and feel his presence. I've always loved hearing stories of Swami interacting with his students or playing with Sai Gita or hearing his discourses. But as he has left the physical form, I think it's important for us, especially for me, my kids, and their kids' kids who may not have that kind of physical presence, to realize that Swami's all around us. The things that are happening to us, you know, for us, between us, that's all Swami's gifts. So today, are we working on is it working? Well, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey to and with Swami. First, with my kind of family's introduction to Swami, and then how I tried to keep Swami ever present with me during my education and then, you know, through my training and now. And you'll see that my journey is really not unlike many others. And I'm striving every day to continue to purify myself and make myself worthy of his work. I'll also share a couple of experiences that kind of taught me some of the lessons that Swami has taught us and reinforced, and one of them, which he already brought up earlier today, was of course this idea of unity and diversity. And finally, I'm going to share with you some of the reflections that I've had and my own personal transformation as I went through my training and now as I enter the kind of middle part of my career. So, excuse me. Sorry, a little bit of a dry mouth. So when I was a kid, you know, I really didn't know who Swami was. I was born and raised in the U.S. My family spent, you know, weekends kind of doing the Hindu festival thing, you know, kind of relating to culture, going to pujas or other kind of rituals when we lived in Texas. And then when I was about 11 or 12 years old, we okay? Is it going? Oh, can you go to slide 5? Next. One more, I think. Yeah, that's one, I think. So, sorry, it's a little bit hard to read from up here, so everyone bear with us. So like I said, when we moved to Florida, it was I was at age probably 11 or 12 years old. That's really when we finally got pulled into the Sai fold. we met this wonderful Sri Lankan family who invited us to bhajans. And we went because we just loved singing. Most of the time, I didn't really know what we were saying or how it translated, but the one thing I knew is how it made me feel. Like when we would sing bhajans, that elation that we had as kids was something that I knew just felt right. It wasn't something that I felt like we were being fake or something that was pulling me in the wrong direction. It felt like something natural, something that was supposed to happen. And I think that's really when the kind of Swami seed, as I like to call it, was kind of planted within me. And eventually we ended up moving to the DC area in Northern Virginia and started going to the Bethesda Psi Center. So for those of you who've never been to the Bethesda Center, this is a big center. It's a lot like Atlanta or Tustin, where, you know, even at that time, and this was back in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, you know, there were hundreds of families that went to the center. And, you know, we would drive a half hour, 45 minutes to be able to go. And at the time, go back one. Yeah, there we go. So at the time, you know, we were traveling there to go to center, and it was really hard for us to get there and in time to do Bal Vikas or even be part of the bhajan singing, but we would go and have that experience. And as my sister and I kind of thought about it, and we, again, matured through this relationship with Swami, it dawned on us, and we told our parents, that if Swami's everywhere, why are we traveling elsewhere to go find him? And my parents still relate to this day having that conversation with us, and I vaguely remember the words coming out of my mouth. And very soon after that, we started our own Psi Center in our house in Fairfax. And for me, growing up, you know, I was kind of middle high school, that was a wonderful opportunity to be able to go to a Psi Center literally, you know, 50 feet from my bedroom and be able to, you know, sing bhajans and do seva. We started a Night Seva project. We're making peanut butter sandwiches like a lot of people do and kind of doing the Psi thing, you know, when I was in high school. And around this time, when I entered high school is kind of when I made this commitment in my mind to do medicine. I had always known, really from a young age, probably from age about 5 or 6, that I really wanted to do medicine, but the commitment came in wanting to do cardiac surgery. And the question in high school was, what field of medicine to pursue? And at that time, you know, the super specialty hospital was being built. Swami was working to heal others, and not just, you know, from the kind of, you know, the physical form, but the spiritual form. And to me, it again just made sense. So at that time, I dedicated my life to this idea that I wanted to be a cardiac surgeon, and I never looked back. So over the next 8 years, you know, while I was an undergraduate and then in medical school, you know, I went to a relatively small college and then, you know, another kind of, decent-sized state university, but I didn't have a Psi Center in town. I didn't have anybody else who even knew anything about Swami, and I was a little bit kind of alone. But at that time, I always had a little picture of Swami. I still have a picture of Swami in my wallet to this day. And, you know, would look at it every day when I come home and study or whatever it may be. But at that time, the only kind of presence of Swami that I felt was going home to DC for bhajans or events here and there. And as much as that little bit of kind of interaction and thinking of Swami helped me and I liked it, my heart was really yearning for something more. I really wanted to have more of an experience and be able to do more in terms of working for him or him working through me. And little did I know that that was about to happen. So after medical school, I went to Colorado, which is where I met Shanti and, you know, we started our family, for my residency and my fellowship. And so for those of you guys who don't know, residency and fellowship on the pathway to becoming a cardiac surgeon is a very stressful time. And that stress comes from a lot of different kind of areas. So for the first time, you're no longer a student. You don't have people who are just watching every single decision that you make. And the decisions that you make have an impact on patients, both positive and negative. And so that leads to a lot of stress just as a learner. There's a lot of material that we have to learn. I mean, you know, my textbooks of heart surgery or just general surgery were this big. The cardiac surgery seemed to be that big. And there was just all this knowledge that we had to gain in a very short period of time. But on top of that, in training, you're surrounded by people who are in the same boat as you. Everyone is there to learn their craft and be the best they are. And there's not a lot of attention paid to kind of the spiritual aspects, the, you know, keeping your life balanced. And what I found was that, you know, really for sure my first year in Denver, I kind of felt a little bit abandoned. And at the time, it was because I was 1,500 miles away from my family. I had no friends. I didn't really know anybody except for the people who were in training with me. I was going to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, coming home at 9 o'clock at night, literally eating dinner, going to sleep, and then repeat. And I found myself really out of balance. You know how earlier I talked about how good I felt as a kid when I sang bhajans, or the times I felt like I was doing seva and like contributing to society and being one of Swami's instruments. I had lost that feeling. And so at that time, I looked back and said, well, what do I need to get that feeling back? And thanks to having had all those experiences as a kid, which laid the foundation for that time, I was able to say, hey, I just go to Sai Center. And sure enough, Denver had a Sai Center. So I reached out, and they met every Sunday, and I started going. And to be honest with you, I really just went for the bhajans. I really had, at the time, and my mother-in-law will tell you that when I first showed up at bhajans, she would describe this guy who shows up in green scrubs, sits down for bhajans for an hour, and then just blazes off. Because that's all I really wanted. That's all I really felt like I needed, was just a little bit of a connection to Swami to try to get me recentered and rebalanced. And so I went to Sai Center regular. I went every week unless I was on call or in the middle of a case or something. And I literally would walk in at I can't remember what time, it was like 11:01. Bhajans were an hour, and I was out of there at 12:01. But then as time progressed, I started doing more and more with the center in terms of doing seva. We had this wonderful YA group. We were doing these burrito projects. We were meeting other YAs who were in the region. And I found myself gravitating away from the bhajans and more towards the messages, more towards the study circle, the discourses, the meaning. And I found myself kind of rebalanced and rededicated my thought process to thinking more of Swami and his message and trying to see that message around me. And I really think that transformation, that initial kind of change, is what set me up to kind of, Swami talks about you have to become the receptacle to hear his message, right? Like you have to be ready to hear the message before the message can be delivered. And I really felt like at that time, I finally was able to change enough to be able to hear some message. And then Swami starts blazing you with experiences, right? So first you kind of get a little bit of this kind of like, this is what you need to learn. But now Swami says, okay, I'm going to start challenging you with opportunity. And as I look back to my life, I think the first real kind of experience was when Shanti and myself, and at the time, Karuna was about 1.5 years, decided to go to India for a year. So between my general surgery and my cardiac training, we took a year off with the plan to go to India and serve. And at the time, I was a board or a trained general surgeon, and the goal was to go to a small hospital somewhere in India and just serve, just give free care to help the people in the community. And there was an ulterior motive as well, which of course was to go to India so we could go see Swami, right? Like, I mean, if you're in that close of proximity, you have that yearning to go. And so we went to this really small hospital in Dudhavan or Chiplum in Maharashtra. It feels like it's about a 24-hour bus ride from Mumbai. It's actually only 8, but when you're on the bus there, it feels like 24 hours. And at the time when we first got there, we were all so excited because it was something new, an opportunity to serve. But after a month or so, we're like, man, are we really doing that much good? Like, we're helping maybe 1 or 2 patients, every couple of days. It wasn't like super busy, but it was, service. And then, both Shanti and I said, well, maybe we should look for another opportunity. And it's kind of funny. We're almost like little puppy dogs while we were there, right? Like Swami would be in Putta Birthday, so we go fly to Putta Birthday if we had a weekend off, and then we hear, oh, he's in Hachi this next weekend, and we travel there just to get a little bit of darshan, or oh, he's going to Whitefield, and we travel down there, and we're doing all this kind of back and forth, and even at the hospital that I was working at, I didn't feel like I was serving much, like I was serving 1, 2 patients a day. I was looking at the quantity, and so then I started looking at other hospitals to go and serve at, and actually, a funny experience comes to mind, and Shanti reminded me of this. So there's actually a Sai Heart Hospital in Rajkot in Gujarat, which I didn't actually know of before I went to India. But I thought, you know what, let me fly out there and see if they need my services. So I land in Rajkot, and I didn't speak a lick of Gujarati. And if you're not from there, let me tell you, if you don't speak Gujarati and you land at the Rajkot airport, you are in major trouble, unless Swami's got your back, So I get in this rickshaw, and I say, oh, take me to the, Satya Sai Hospital. And the rickshaw driver, I think the only word he heard was hospital, because he took me to this general hospital, threw me out, and I'm looking around for I'm like, Swami, where are you? God, I'm looking for a picture of Swami, Sarva Dharma symbol, something to say I'm in the right place. And sure enough, I was in the wrong place. So, I walk into this hospital and people look at me like I'm, clearly I'm like dressed in, whatever outfit I'm in, not fitting in. But out of nowhere, this person walks up who happens to be like fluent in English and figures out that, hey, you're in the wrong hospital, and puts me back in a rickshaw, talks to the rickshaw driver, and gets me to that hospital, which was really a pretty phenomenal experience, like just in terms of seeing what they could accomplish in such a small facility, right? They have like 3 operating rooms. They do nothing but heart surgery. They have an ICU. They have this beautiful separate house just for Swami. Like nobody goes in it except to clean it, and the only person who's allowed in there is Swami, if and when he comes to visit. But it was really just a wonderful experience. Like everybody there was so loving. Everybody was so excited to potentially, get me to help. But I didn't have the skills necessary to help them. But that didn't matter because at least I got that exposure. Eventually, I came back. We finished our time in India, came back to the U.S., served in some rural communities here, and then I started my cardiac fellowship. But I think in hindsight, this was the first lesson that Swami was trying to teach us, which is that service to anyone is service to God. It's not the quantity of service that matters. It is the quality of service. And at the time, I didn't really understand that. And this happens to all of us, right? We have an experience. We don't really know what's kind of going on. And sometimes it takes reflection to really understand what was the message that we were supposed to hear. And I firmly believe now in hindsight that we did good. We may not have served 1 million people, but the 100 people that we helped out, I think we genuinely had a deep connection with them and really impacted them. So the first lesson, like I said, is that quality service is more important than quantity service. And so, that was just kind of one of the first lessons that I learned. And I think I'm going to go through a few other lessons that kind of came about. So go ahead and click the button again. So, as I've kind of reflected back on my now almost 8 years practicing as a cardiac surgeon, I realized that I've really been blessed with many different life lessons. And I think on a kind of a simple level and a practical one is this idea of unity and diversity. So every day I get to, so as Swami said earlier, I didn't think he was going to be giving a talk before me, but, I have this little quote up here that basically, so people today acquire many types of education in this world, but they lack the knowledge of humanness. They see diversity and unity, but cannot see unity and diversity. It is very easy to see diversity and unity. Anyone can do that, but it requires a lot of effort to recognize a unity underlying the entire diversity that exists. So every day I get to treat patients who look totally different from each other. Some speak English, some don't. Some are tall, some are short, some are fat, some are skinny. Some have brown hair, some don't, some have no hair. But what's interesting is I also get to see the unity that is below that at multiple levels. And what I mean by that is that all the patients that I have, or I see, have a unity in the sense that they have a need to feel safe, a need to feel cared for. They all have a sense of anxiety as they undergo heart surgery and a calling to a higher power. And it doesn't matter if they use the word Jesus or Allah or Ram or Swami or whatever it may be. I see that unity every day. Everybody's the same. But there's another level of unity too that happens on the inside. And I mean literally on the inside. So when I get to do, heart surgery and I look inside, I'm always astonished at how similar we are all built, right? Everybody has a heart in the middle of the chest. It's not like your heart's down in your pelvis or, in your back or up in your head. Like your heart sits here. And the basic connections for all, human beings are the same. And the functionality of the heart is the same. And so, again, there is that kind of unity at that level, as well. And I have the privilege of seeing that, every day. There are times when I, sometimes forget that. And I see I forget this kind of unity sense, but whenever that happens, Swami's always good about kind of bringing it back home and reminding me of it. So yet another lesson that I learned, go ahead and click that again, is that that we're not alone. So hit the next slide here. This is one of my, kind of favorite stories that I can remember. And I have to admit, a lot of times when I tell this story, it was such a profound moment for me that I get a little bit kind of teary-eyed, which if you ask my family, I don't really get teary-eyed. But when I think about this one particular event, I tend to do that. So if I do, forgive me. So when I first got to Nebraska, just to set the stage, so the Nebraska Heart Hospital is an amazing place. A freestanding heart hospital, 65 beds. So it's a small place. It's not like, you know, the hospitals we have here that have hundreds of, potentially thousands of beds with thousands of employees. This hospital literally had like maybe 100 employees, 4 surgeons, 15 people helping the operator. So I'm trying to set the stage, just kind of a small place. So one day I got charged with doing the task of operating on a very difficult, kind of patient who had a very sick heart and needed a valve replacement. And so, during the case, I really expected things to kind of go well. Like I said, hey, Swami, lead the way. I'm your instrument. And I was like, okay, it's going to be fine. And, an operation that was supposed to be kind of 4 hours unraveled into one that was about 12 and a half. And things just weren't going right. And at every single turn, it's like I fix one problem and another problem would kind of spring up. And every time that happened, I just kept saying, side arm. This is all on you. You lead me, tell me what to do. And at the end of that 12 hours, I finally, sat down. The patient was, very sick. And I was really, really worried that he wasn't going to survive the night, let alone the hospital stay. And I had them take the patient upstairs, and I just sat there in this kind of darkened OR, just thinking, trying to think back to what did I do wrong, or what could we have done differently to try to change the outcome, make him better, and just asking Swami for guidance. So about maybe 5-10 minutes later, I left the OR, walked down the hallway, and hit the button to take the elevator upstairs to go see him. And out of nowhere, this lady shows up. She's got black hair, kind of curly, a little bit kind of longish, and clearly an employee of the hospital, because they've got the NHI kind of name badge on. And out of nowhere, this lady says, everything's going to be fine. You've done your job. And then she disappears. I kid you not, vanished. I mean, sure, she turned around and went down the hallway. And I was like, oh my God, was that, what was that message for? So the next couple of days, so the next couple of days, I looked for this person. I went to the pharmacy, I went to the lab, I went to the cafeteria, I went to the loading dock. I searched, and remember, this is not a 100,000 square foot facility. This is like the size of maybe a big house. I looked everywhere for this person and never found her. And what was interesting is over the next couple of days, I saw these little, what I call kind of just like little pearls from Swami, a little kind of hey, I'm here helping you. Like for example, I would wake up at 10:08. Like the nurse would call me saying, hey, your patient's blood count is this, and it was like 10:08. Or the patient had gone to room 306 instead of room 305. Or I don't know if anybody's ever seen these Saya delivery trucks, the SAIA, it's one of those companies. I saw that truck drive by, and they have no presence in Nebraska because there's another trucking company that's there. And, it was really by his grace that I could see all that, and then I watched this patient just get better. And I finally, at the time, I didn't know what to do except to say, what, Swami, this is all on you. I'm doing everything I can, and the outcome is for you to decide, not for me to decide. And in this this experience reinforced kind of two things to me. The first, which I'll get to in a minute, this idea that we're the instrument, but the second, which is that Swami is always there. We may not always see it, but in our time of kind of most need is when he really manifests and shows us that he's there. So to that end, we can click through twice actually. Yeah. This idea that Swami's always with us, is really easy to kind of say and think about when we're at home and we see Swami as a picture right in front of us. But it also happens when we're not at home. Let's see here, this should click, yeah, and click it one more time. Okay, so in 2019, we had moved here in January 2019, and last summer before the whole pandemic hit, we had the opportunity to go on vacation in Chile. So Shanti and her sister left a week before I went down there with the kids and Shanti's mom to kind of have an experience and have fun in Chile. Needless to say, I was a little nervous, right? So I've got me, I've got an 8-year-old, I've got a tweener, and I've got a 70-year-old grandma and a bunch of baggage traveling to Chile, where we were going to travel into Santiago, which is the capital, then catch a connecting flight down to Patagonia, and then a 4-hour bus ride to go to Puerto Natales to meet up with Shanti and her sister. What could possibly go wrong, right? So sure enough, by some miracle, we land on time in Santiago. But picture this, so we're traveling through this international airport. I got an 8-year-old who got little sleep on the airplane. I got a 11-year-old, 12-year-old who's kind of a little bit cranky as well, and then my mother-in-law who is 70 and helping trying to move all these bags. And we go up to the counter to check into our next flight, and the flight's been canceled. And I was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Because it's not like you can rent a car or buy another flight. They had totally canceled the flight. And I was exasperated. I just said, you know what, Swami, this is all on you. And literally when I said that, I turned around and saw like a Holiday Inn sign, for the airport hotel. And so we lugged all our stuff over there, and remarkably, they had one room that was open and available at 8 a.m. for us to check in. So for most people who travel, it's pretty rare to be able to check into a room before like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So I was like, well, okay, this must be a little bit of kind of Swami helping us out. That's cool. We'll just sit here, relax. We'll catch the next flight tomorrow. So the next day, we lug all of our stuff back to the airport. We get on the flight, and we get down to, I think the name of the town was like Navartale or something, so some small town. We get out of the airport thinking we're going to see some sign that says bus to Puerto Natales. Nope, nothing like that. This airport's literally got one gate and like 5 people. And we had no computer, we had no Wi-Fi, we had no cell phone service, we had nothing. And none of the 4 of us spoke any Spanish. And once again, I'm like, Swami, you got to help us out here, buddy. I don't know what to do. And literally out of nowhere, this guy shows up who doesn't speak any English, but he's got a cell phone with Google Translate on it. And using him and like a bus driver, I think it was like this guy could speak Spanish and German, and then we used the Google Translate to go from like German to English, and we figured out a way to get on the bus, get 4 seats, and finally get down to Puerto Natales, where we met up with Shanti and her sister. But so that was kind of like, okay, Swami, yeah, sure, you're here with us, all the time. That's great. That's awesome. So we spent a couple of days there, and one night while we were down in Puerto Natales, we went to dinner at our kind of hostel's restaurant. And the 6 of us were sitting there eating, and we noticed this one other family. There was like 9 of them, and they were carrying on and having a good time. And one person kind of was sitting here like this, kind of talking, and we noticed that he had a green ring on his finger. And Shanti's mom and me were like, man, that looks really familiar. Like that looks like a Swami ring. So we're like, you know what, let's go find out. Why not? So we walk over there and we say, hey, excuse me, can we just say Saidam? And sure enough, they were like, yeah, Saidam, what's going on? And it turns out they were a family from New Jersey who happened to also be traveling through Patagonia and happened to have dinner at that restaurant at the same time that we were. And we sat there for another 20, 30 minutes just kind of talking about Swami experiences and our journey, their journey. And it turns out that the patriarch of the family there is actually a cardiologist from New Jersey who sets up seva activities in India. So the plan was, actually this past summer the plan was to go to India and actually serve, again, now at, in a more medical facility, but thanks to the pandemic, that's been delayed. Oh, sorry. So, that was a great experience, and we had a great time with that. And then we left Puerto Natales and returned back to Santiago. The next day, we took an excursion and saw this kind of South African family and thought, hey, maybe these guys know some of our friends. We got to talking to them, and guess what? They're also a Sai family. And then the coup d'etat, in my opinion, or what was truly like an amazing kind of manifestation of Swami's presence, was the Santiago Sai Center. So, we, all 6 of us are clearly, devotees of Swami. And we thought it would be great to take this opportunity while we're down there to go to the Sai Center. So we called an Uber, put in the address, and got to the wrong place. And I was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? The Uber driver was like, well, I just finished my shift. I'll take you to the right place. So he drives us another like 20 minutes to the right location in downtown Santiago. And we get there, and it's this like industrial area. And we're looking around, every building looks the exact same. But then out of the corner of our eye, we see this symbol that's about this big, that's our, Swami's Sarvadharma symbol. And we walk in, and we think we're gonna be late, we don't really know what's going on, but we hear this Ganesh bhajan. It's all in Spanish, but we know it's a Ganesh bhajan. And so we were able to sit down and enjoy like this hour-long bhajan, and then they had this like really awesome SSE play. They had this, I don't know what the kid's name is. He was, dressed up like Swami, and it was as if Swami was like, "You have come to me," right? Like that was the feeling that we had. And what's striking about this experience was, how like within Sai centers across the world, let it be Chile, Brazil, the U.S., right? There's like this universality of Swami, this unity that we can all feel when we walk in there. You know what to do, you know what that feeling is going to be, and how we all profess our love to Swami is so similar. So for those people who have never had the opportunity to go to a Sai center outside the U.S., I would highly recommend it. I've been to a couple now, and it's just such an amazing experience to feel that love in a little bit different language, but in the same way. And what that lesson taught me was that not only is Swami, always with us and always around us, but his love transcends location and it transcends language. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Where am I? I think I'm doing okay on time, I guess. Am I okay, time-wise? So the next kind of lesson that I learned is this idea that we are just instruments. So as a surgeon, I get to wield a scalpel, I get to wield a needle driver, forceps, pickups, whatever it may be. But, and I can't honestly say that like I've ever opened someone's chest and like saw Swami there, or saw an Om sign, or something like that. And I know there are other people who can say that. But I can say that I have had experiences where I remember the beginning of the operation, or doing the beginning of the operation and doing the end of the operation, but don't remember actually performing the actions in the middle. I remember like being in a trance, watching my hands working, but not remembering that I actually had control over that. And for me, that is the ultimate manifestation that I am just the instrument. Now, we say that, right? Like we say, "Oh, I'm just the instrument," but I think what that means for different people, it means different things. For me, what it really means is that I'm not the doer, he is, and I need to detach from the end result. That I'm here to serve as his instrument, but the ultimate outcome is up to his will, not my will. And, to this day, I continue to try to think about that. And there are clearly times when I forget that. And I get kind of bogged down, and, it hurts when patients have kind of a bad outcome. And Swami, I think, is still teaching me that it's important to always keep in mind that he is the doer and I am just the instrument. So even today, go ahead and click over. Yeah, he's still giving me experiences, right? Like transformation in our life is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It's one experience after another. So this literally happened on the 4th of February. So, not even, 2 weeks ago. So normally when we do heart surgery, we follow patients very carefully for about the first month, maybe for up to about 3 months as surgeons, and then we kind of send them back to the cardiologist to take care of. And so I operated on this gentleman 5 months ago. And for some reason, his name came to me. And I looked in the chart and I noticed that we hadn't actually seen him, since a month after surgery. For something inside me said, you know what, you need to call this guy. There's something not right. You haven't seen him. You just call him. So I got his phone number. I called, and sure enough, he was truly suffering. He was so short of breath, he couldn't walk across a room, and he was in total distress and didn't know what to do. He had called his primary care doc, his cardiologist, and they hadn't called back yet, and he was at his wit's end. And he said to me, "I'm so happy you called. I didn't know what else to do." Right? Why would it be that a patient that I know I had seen at least a month after surgery who's doing fine, and again, I stress, I would not usually call somebody like this. This patient's name just came to me. I called him on the first time I called him, he picked up. It's not like he was out of his house. It's not like, we had to leave a message. Picked up, answered the phone, and said, "I'm so happy you called." Like, if this isn't a manifestation of Swami's will and me acting as an instrument, I don't know, what is. And so once again, I think this demonstrates how we're really just the instruments of his, divine plan. Hopefully I'm wrapping this up a little bit. Okay. So as I reflect on, these, almost first 10 years of my career, I can personally see a transformation that's happened in my life thanks to Swami's experiences. So for those of you who've never been part of a surgical training program, which is probably most of you, what I found is that it's really a program that unfortunately leads to a growth of ego. There's a big focus on being the best technical surgeon, having the most kind of book knowledge, putting your career first, sacrificing everything else, where professional success is defined by doing more cases, moving up the ranks, and having more prestige. But for me, you can hit the button again. So I think there's a balance for everyone. And I've now realized that spiritual healing weighs more for me. And as Swami says, doctors should recognize the importance of the 5 human values. Love is the basis for all the other values. And doctors can infuse courage in patients by the love they show towards patients. If doctors carry out their duties with love, they will be crowned with success. So my interpretation of this quote and his message is that I need to be more willing to take on a spiritual healing path. And what that means for me is opening my heart to other patients, or to patients, and developing that kind of deeper connection. And a phrase that I kind of coined, or I really like, is that kind of healing gets you from an ego to letting me go. And over time, I've noticed as I've kind of going through this transformation that my approach to treating patients has really evolved from treating the disease to treating the patient themselves as a whole. And in order to accomplish that goal, I've had to really unify all of these kind of messages and teachings that Swami has kind of put me through over the last 20, really 40 years. Having this unity and diversity, treating everybody as they are, seeing Swami in all, and recognizing that whether it's a new lab tech, a new patient, a new colleague, that's all Swami's manifestation, and ultimately that I'm just the instrument and he is the doer. So I've come to recognize that although it's my dharma to be the most competent cardiac surgeon I can be, I have to always perform my duties with God in my mind and my heart to effect true spiritual healing. So all of these experiences have also kind of led me to a little bit of an interesting kind of personal view of Maya, right? So I think as we all go through our experiences in our life and we hear Swami's message and hear his teachings, we develop this kind of view of ourselves in this world. And this is kind of the way, this is kind of my philosophy or my view. So has anybody, I'm sure you've gone to the ocean or the sea and you kind of look out into the water and you see like animals or toys or things like bobbing up and down in the water, right? So I see myself as one of these kind of objects, where at times I'm kind of under the water and times that I'm above the water. And what I view this as is the times that I'm under the water are the times when I'm not seeing his message or feeling his presence. And the times that I'm above the water is when you feel his warmth. You see him all around you. But here's the secret. The secret is that in that analogy, the sky, the sun, Swami, he's always there, right? It's up to us to bring our heads out of the water. And again, while it's my duty, to be able to do all these do all my activities to the best of my ability, it's really up to me to do that with love in my heart, to be able to elevate my head out of the water and see Swami's presence all around us. So to me, like this is the kind of view that I've developed for myself, over time, that these moments, like when I had that interaction with that person at the heart hospital who came out of nowhere, or this phone call I had to make the other day, or those times when I did surgery where I seemed to transcend the actual physical, those to me are those times when my head was coming above the water and when I was seeing Swami. But again, what I need to do, as I'm telling myself as I transform in the future, is keep my head above the water, because Swami is always there. So, in conclusion, as I reflect back on my life and experiences thus far, I'm truly grateful to Swami for giving me all these experiences, all these opportunities and challenges to remember his presence. I'm fortunate to be knowing of Swami and really privileged to serve him every day. And I'm grateful that I've had even this transformation thus far. I know that in the moments that I've faced obstacles, they've seemed much larger and insurmountable, but as I reflect back, it's clear now that they were actually gifts from Swami to keep me developing in my relationship with him. I know that I still have a long way to go in my side journey, but I look forward to treating more patients with a balanced professional and spiritual approach, ever keeping Swami in my heart and in my mind. And I say thank you, dear Swami. Sadam.
Sai Ram. Thank you so much, brother. Truly to hear from someone as accomplished as he is, I think you can all sense the level of love and humbleness that's there, along with such a capacity as a human being, obviously as a physician, and as someone that loves Swami. It's truly been our pleasure and our fortune to listen to you and for you to share so openly with us about your journey with Swami. And I think we all learned something important. And, love is what keeps your head above the water. I think that's the keynote, the biggest takeaway for me, along with many others. But if Ravi can come up, we'd love to offer one small token of love to you, brother, for your lovely speech today. Sayonara. Thank you so much. Jai Sai Ram, everyone.
Sai Ram. Sai Ram. Thank you, Brother Sagar, and thank you, Brother Aaron, for putting a wonderful talk together today. Brother Sagar, you touched upon many key elements in our life. Indeed, it is very valuable, because the very form of Swami is, love is my form. That's what Bhagavan said. And later on, he also said, my life is my message, in the very song, many times. And at a later phase, he said, your life is my message. And I'm so grateful to Swami for giving us such wonderful brother amongst us, who is able to take his values, take his teachings all over, wherever he is, day in and out, implementing Swami's teachings. Dear brother, you made all of our Valentine's Day very special. Thank you, Swami, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to listen to your ardent devotee. Well, happy Valentine's Day to each one of you. Hope everyone is having a good time. By His grace, of course, we had a great talk. If you can go to the announcements, just for me. Yeah. We all had a great Prema Bandham, loving bond with Lord Sai, or loving bond with the beloved Baba, we just had. What is important is that, like Brother Sagar said, carrying his message and implementing his values wherever we are, that is important. Sometimes, yes, we all know everything Swami has given us, the same message to each one of us. But sometimes we kind of, out of our ignorance or daily mundane life, we kind of, overlook. So it's important that we reconnect, and also remember and remind, these values. So moving on, after today, of course, our devotional program, weekly devotional program would continue as is, but our next in-person meeting at Center would be for Shivratri celebrations. Shivratri this year is on a Thursday, that's on March 11th. But however, a couple of programs are already lined up by SSIO. So depending on, what our brothers and sisters want to do in Atlanta, we can either meet on Thursday, or we can definitely celebrate on that Sunday. That's why I put 2 days together. But Instead of one person deciding, we all can collectively decide how we want to. Okay, but however, we will have an in-person celebration in March. Following, Aradhana Day is coming up. Thankfully, 2020 is over. 2021, we are marching, we are running. Guess what? We are already talking about programs in the month of April. So Aradhana Day, this year being on Saturday, that afternoon, some sort of mini retreat kind of setup, we will have, where programs will start at 2 o'clock with, wonderful talk, music, and special music program by our own membership, then followed by, bhajans and so on, whole 9 yards. Please stay tuned. But what is important is that please also keep these programs, on your calendar and participate actively. So in a few minutes, what we'll do is we will have a few special songs. When I say special songs, it's some of the songs that are not sung often, but they're all very special, offering our collective love to Swami. Then followed by wonderful bhajans are lined up for today. Dear all, wherever you are, if not in the center, looking at our altar, in a minute, this podium and myself also will be gone. Only you and dear Bhagwan will be, seen. So wherever you are, if you could not come to the center, it's absolutely fine. Look at the altar, look at, Swami, get connected, give powerful chorus from wherever you are. And have a blessed week ahead. And also, anything else, Aaron? We're good, okay. So, are we ready? Yeah? Okay, dear all, in a minute we will start the musical offering, followed by wonderful, lovely bhajans have put together for today. Thank you all. Jai Sai Ram.
Take my hand and look into my eyes. I want to make this moment last. I'm not afraid, I know it's right. It's such a little thing to ask. Won't you be mine for just a lifetime? Wish that I had more to give you, but all I've got is just a lifetime, and I want to spend it all with you. Smile at me and look inside my heart, and my worries disappear. Promise me we'll never be apart. Oh, that's all I need to hear. Won't you be mine for just a lifetime? Wish that I had more to give you, but all I've got is just a lifetime, and I want to spend it all with you. Won't you be mine for just a lifetime? Wish that I had more to give you, but all I've got is just a lifetime, and I want to spend my life with you.
प्यार हूँ मैं तेरा, प्यार हूँ मैं तेरे जोत का विस्तार हूँ मैं। प्यार हूँ मैं तेरा, प्यार हूँ मैं तेरे जोत का ही प्रकार हूँ मैं। प्यार हूँ मैं तेरा, प्यार हूँ मैं। अतिशुद्ध हो मैं विशाल हो, कोई भाव हो मैं दयाल हो, कोई गीत में अविराम हो मैं। प्यार हो मैं तेरा, प्यार हो मैं तेरे जोत का विस्तार हो मैं। प्यार हो मैं तेरा, प्यार हो मैं। जाएगी नजर जहाँ पाएगा मेरे निशान। हर जगह मैं किसान हूँ, मैं गान हूँ, मैं कुम्हार हूँ, मैं लोहार हूँ, मैं पसीने का एक बूंद हूँ, तेरा दास आके बूंद हूँ, बड़ी दुर्दशा से मुक्त हूँ, जय देश गिरता आनंद हूँ मैं, आनंद हूँ मैं। एकता मानव कथा न लोक हो, मैं ही सत्य हो, मैं ही धर्म हो, मैं ही शांति प्रेम आधार हूँ। तेरा प्यार हूँ मैं, प्यार हूँ मैं, तेरा प्यार हूँ मैं, तेरे जोत का विस्तार हूँ मैं, प्यार हूँ मैं, तेरा प्यार हूँ मैं। तुमसे प्यार कितना, तुमसे प्यार कितना, तुमसे प्यार कितना, हमको तुमसे प्यार कितना, साई तुम ही जानते, साई तुम ही जानते, दिलों की धड़कन तुम हो साई, दिलों की धड़कन तुम हो साई, तुम हमारे प्राण हो, तुम हमारे प्राण, हमको तुमसे प्यार है, we love you, dearest Lord, we love you. We love you, dearest son, we love you. Nirulene ma jeevanam, nirulene chepavedanam, sannide maaku pannide, నీవు చూపే ప్రాణ సమానం, నీకు మాకు ఒకే బంధము, तुमसे प्यार कितना, साई तुम ही जानते, दिलों की धड़कन तुम हो साई, तुम हमारे प्राण हो, हमको तुमसे प्यार है, we love you, dearest Lord, we love you. जगन्मे कृपा करी साई माँ। जननी साई माँ। मई जननी साई माँ। दर्शन दो
दर्शन दो जीवन के सहारे आओ आओ साईं प्यारे आओ आओ साईं प्यारे कीर्तन करूं मैं साईं तुम्हारे
साईं तुम्हारे
आओ आओ साईं प्यारे
आओ
साईं प्यारे तुम हो मेरे नयनों के तारे
मेरे नयनों के तारे
दर्शन दो जीवन के सहारे 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 आओ आओ साईं प्यारे
प्रेममये साई मां ज्ञानमये साई मां
प्रेममयी साईं मां ज्ञानमयी साईं मां
प्रेममये साई मां ज्ञानमये साई मां
प्रेममयी साईं मां ज्ञानमयी साईं मां
जय मां जय मां
जय मां जय
जय माँ जय माँ जय माँ जय माँ जय माँ प्रेममयी साई माँ ज्ञानमयी साई माँ तुम्हारा श्री साई अवतारा हिंदू मुस्लिम सिख है साई सबका पालन हारा शिरडी साई अवतारा हिंदू मुस्लिम सिख साई सबका पालनहारा प्रेम ईश्वर
ईश्वर प्रेम है। ईश्वर प्रेम हर धड़कन में साई समाए ईश्वर प्रेम हर धड़कन में साई समाए ईश्वर प्रेम हर धड़कन में साई समाए ईश्वर प्रेम ईश्वर ईश्वर प्रेम बोलो राम रहीम कृष्ण करीम 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 ज़ोहरास्ता ईशु नानक ज़ोहरास्ता ईशु नानक ज़ोहरास्ता ईशु नानक ज़ोहरास्ता ईशु नानक कोई भी नाम जपो रे मनवा ईश्वर प्रेम है कोई भी नाम जपो रे मनवा ईश्वर प्रेम है कोई भी नाम जपो रे मनवा ईश्वर प्रेम है कोई भी नाम जपो रे मनवा ईश्वर प्रेम है ईश्वर प्रेम है ईश्वर प्रेम बोलो राम रहीम कृष्ण करीम बोलो राम रहीम कृष्ण करीम ज़ोहरास्ता ईशु नानक ज़ोहरास्ता ईशु नानक कोई भी नाम जपो रे मनवा ईश्वर प्रेम है कोई
शिरडी के साई परती के बाबा, शिरडी के साई परती के बाबा, शिरडी के साई परती के बाबा, शिरडी के साई परती के बाबा। तुम हो हमारे प्यारे साईं बाबा, तुम हो हमारे प्यारे साईं बाबा, तुम हो हमारे प्यारे साईं बाबा, तुम हो हमारे प्यारे साईं बाबा। शिरडी के साईं परती के बाबा, शिरडी के साईं परती के बाबा। प्रेममया साईं प्रेम प्रदाता, प्रेममया साईं प्रेम प्रदाता, प्रेममया साईं प्रेम प्रदाता, प्रेममया साईं प्रेम प्रदाता। ईश्वरावनंदन जगत परिपाला, ईश्वरावनंदन जगत परिपाला, ईश्वरावनंदन जगत परिपाला, ईश्वरावनंदन जगत परिपाला। पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला, पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला, पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला, पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला। शिरडी के साईं परती के बाबा, शिरडी के साईं परती के बाबा। तुम हो हमारे प्यारे साईं बाबा, तुम हो हमारे प्यारे साईं बाबा। शिरडी के साईं परती के बाबा, शिरडी के साईं परती के बाबा। प्रेममया साईं प्रेम प्रदाता, प्रेममया साईं प्रेम प्रदाता। ईश्वरावनंदन जगत परिपाला, ईश्वरावनंदन जगत परिपाला। पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला, पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला। पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला, पाप विनाशक परम कृपाला। शिरडी के साईं परती के बाबा।
बड़ा चित्त चोरा वृंदावन संचारा,
बड़ा चित्त चोरा वृंदावन संचारा,
बड़ा चित्त चोरा वृंदावन संचारा।
बड़ा चित्त चोरा वृंदावन संचारा।
गोपाला गोपाला हे मुरली गोपाला,
गोपाला गोपाला हे मुरली गोपाला,
गोपाला गोपाला हे मुरली गोपाला,
गोपाला गोपाला हे मुरली गोपाला।
गोवर्धनोद्धार गोपाला बाला,
गोवर्धनोद्धार गोपाल बाला,
गोवर्धनोद्धार गोपाला बाला,
गोवर्धनोद्धार गोपाल बाला।
गोपी मनोहर राधे गोपाला,
गोपी मनोहर राधे गोपाला,
गोपी मनोहर राधे गोपाला,
गोपी मनोहर Gopala
Govardhanodara Gopala Bala
Govardhanodhara Gopala Bala
Gopi Manohara Radhe Gopala
Gopi Manohara Radhe Gopala
Gopi Manohara Radhe Gopala
Gopi Manohara Radhe Gopala
Bajachita Chora Vrindavana Sanchara Gopala Gopala He Murali Gopala.
Prema Swarup, I am divine love.
I am divine love.
Prema Swarupa Sai Ram.
Prema Swarupa Sai Ram.
Prema, Prema, Prema Om.
Prema, Prema, Prema Om.
Sachidananda Om.
Satchidananda Om.
Satya Swarupa,
Satyasvarupa.
I am divine truth.
I am divine truth.
Satya Swarupa Sai Ram.
Satyasvarupa Sai Ram.
Satya, Satya, Satya Om.
Satya, Satya, Satya Om.
Sachidananda Om.
बोलो राम साई राम। प्रेम से बोलो एक बार साई राम।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
तुम हो बाबा दया के सागर।
तुम हो दया के सागर।
तुम हो गुण मंदिर नटनागर।
तुम हो मंदिर नटनागर।
तुम हो बाबा दया के सागर।
तुम हो बाबा दया के सागर।
तुम हो गुण मंदिर नटनागर।
तुम हो गुण मंदिर नटनागर।
आदि अनंत है सत्य सनातन।
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 अलक निरंजन साई जनार्दन।
अलक निरंजन साई जनार्दन।
अलक निरंजन साई जनार्दन।
अलक निरंजन साई जनार्दन।
सच्चिदानंद प्रभो कृपा करो प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे। साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
तुम हो बाबा दया के सागर।
तुम हो बाबा दया के सागर।
तुम हो गुण मंदिर नटनागर।
तुम हो मंदिर नटनागर।
आदि अनंत है सत्य सनातन।
आदि अनंत है सत्य सनातन।
अलक निरंजन साई जनार्दन।
अलक निरंजन साई जनार्दन।
सच्चिदानंद प्रभो कृपा करो प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
साई
प्रेम दे, शांति दे, आनंद दे, बाबा प्रेम दे।
आओ प्यारे नयन हमारे साई हमारे आओ।
आओ प्यारे नयन हमारे साई हमारे
is my bread, bliss is my food.
Love is my form, truth is my bread, bliss is my food. My
Life is my message, expansion is my life.
My life is my message, expansion is my life.
No reason for love, no season for love, no birth, no death.
No reason for love, no season for love, no birth, no death.
Prema Satyananda, Dharma Shanti
Ahimsa, Prema Satyananda, Dharma Shanti Ahimsa.
Shri Sai Satya Sai Prema Sai Jai Jai.
Shri Sai Satya Sai Prema
Shri Baba Satya Baba Prema Baba Jai Jai.
Shri Baba Satya Baba Prema Baba Jai Jai.
Love is my form, truth is my breath, bliss is my food.
Love is my form, truth is my breath, bliss is my food.
My life is my message, expansion is my
My
life.
life is my message, expansion is my life.
No reason for love, no season for love, no birth, no death.
No reason for love, no season for love, no birth, no death.
Prema Satyananda, Dharma Shanti Ahimsa.
Prema Satyananda, Dharma Shanti Ahimsa.
Shri Sai Satya Sai Prema Sai Jai Jai.
Shri Sai Satya Sai Prema Sai Jai Jai.
Shri Baba Satya Baba Prema Baba Jai Jai.
Shri Baba Satya Baba Prema Baba Jai Jai.
Shri Sai Satya Sai Prema Sai Jai Jai.
Shri Sai Satya Sai Prema Sai Jai Jai.
Shri Baba Satya Baba Prema Baba Jai Jai.
Shri Baba Satya Baba Prema Baba Jai.
Love is my
Form, truth is my bread, bliss is my food.
At moments like this, I sing out a song. I sing out a love song to Swami. At moments like this, I lift up my heart. I lift up my heart to the Lord, singing, I love you, Lord. Singing, I love you, Lord. Singing, I love you, Lord. I love you. ओम जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वरा ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलतिका आश्रित कल्पलतिका आपद्बान्धवा ओम जय जगदीश हरे माता पिता गुरुदैव मरियं तयो नीवे स्वामी मरियं तयो नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्र शयना ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप जय श्री ओम साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल हारति अंदुको मंगल हारति अंदुको मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति 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 समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थ इष्टार्थ मोक्ष प्रदातं बाबा विभूतिं idamaśayami sacred holy and supreme is Baba's vibhuti pouring forth an endless stream its play of vibhuti so auspicious is its might it grants liberation Baba's vibhuti its power protects me paramam pavitram Baba vibhutim paramam vichitram leela vibhutim paramartha ishtadra moksha pradhanam Baba vibhutim